We're closing out the week with a game of either or. What do I mean? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about it next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm Patricia Traynor, your host. Happy Friday to everybody on today's Locked On Giants podcast. We're going to play another game. Today, we're going to try a game called Either Or. And basically what it is there's two scenarios, and I'm going to choose either or, which scenario I think makes the most sense. And as always, if you agree, disagree, chime in the comment section. If you are watching on YouTube or if you're listening on our audio platforms, feel free to send me an email and let me know what you think. Always interested to hear what you guys and gals think. So let us jump right in and start our game of either or. All right, first question. This is kind of obvious. Either Saquon Barkley or Daniel Jones. Which one is the higher priority to re-sign? To me, this is a no-brainer. Daniel Jones, no-brainer. If you're going to build an offense, who are you going to build it around? You're going to build it around the quarterback. So that being said, given where the Giants are drafting, which is number 25 in the first round, given the quarterback class and the chances of getting another quarterback, given the free agency class and the fact that the demand is probably going to be higher than the supply, I think if you're the Giants, you have to re-sign Daniel Jones. You know, I know there are people out there who say, oh, that's not going to happen. Oh, Brian Daboll doesn't want him back. Oh, Joe Schoen is just saying that. Folks, barring something really funky happening, Daniel Jones is coming back. Might as well get used to it. Now, what kind of money is he going to get? I'm working on finishing a contract structure for him. Spoiler alert, that's going to be one of my shows next week. So he's going to get paid. And I know some of you are like, well, you know, they won't be able to spend on other things. Yeah, they will. Trust me. I've done the math. I've done the cap work. So they'll be able to spend on other things. All right. So why not Saquon Barkley? You're wondering. Saquon is a great player. Very unique talent. Just turned 26, I believe, on Friday. Or on Thursday, I should say. I think it was his birthday. But here's the thing, folks. You don't really build an offense around a running back. You just don't. You build it around the quarterback because that's the guy who's touching the ball on every snap. So if you're the Giants, if you have to choose between Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, you go with the quarterback and you maybe take the money, you know, if you can't, you know, reach an agreement with Saquon, you spend it on upgrading the offensive line a little bit more. You spend it on getting new receivers in here, maybe getting another tight end, and maybe getting a 1-2 punch at running back, which the Giants really didn't have this year. So again, to me, no brainer here. If you're doing either or, you go with Daniel Jones, the quarterback. Sorry, guys. I know there are some of you out there that disagree and want to see Daniel Jones gone, but I don't see it happening. I really don't. It would have to take something really, really unexpected for that to be the case. And I just don't see that being the case. All right. Next, either or. Would I take a receiver or a linebacker in the first round of the draft? Tough one, right? Maybe not so much. Now, disclaimer. I always tell people when they ask me, what position would you draft first in the draft? I always say it depends on how the board falls. It depends on what they do in free agency. I still say that. But in the interest of playing either or, I'm going to pick one. And my choice at 25, if one is available, is a linebacker. What? A linebacker over a receiver? Are you crazy, Pat? That's probably what some of you are thinking. Well, hear me out, folks. Hear me out on this one. Yes, the Giants do need a number one receiver. I'm not disputing that. I do think they need what we call headache players, guys that can create headaches for opposing defensive coordinators who have to figure out how to stop them. And if Saquon Barkley departs via free agency, Giants will not have anybody, maybe Daniel Jones and his legs, but other than that, who are they going to have that's currently on the roster that might keep a defensive coordinator up at night? Really nobody. That being said, here's why I pick linebacker. Number one, the run defense last year was terrible. How many times did we not see linebackers come up and fill the run lanes? How many times did we see the middle of the field so wide open that, you sat there wondering what the heck was going on? How many times did a running back or a tight end just exploit the middle of the field and make the linebackers look foolish in coverage because they took bad angles or they didn't have the foot speed to keep up? The answer is too many. And my thinking is you prioritize a linebacker, you solve a lot of problems. You get a guy who can hopefully help with that run defense. And if you can, beef up that defense and stop the opponent cold, now maybe you give the offense a shorter field to work with or a better field to work with. And everything else takes care of itself. So if it comes down to a linebacker or a receiver, I would say just by a hair that a linebacker is more of a priority. My take. Okay, the third scenario. This one's kind of weird, but hear me out on this one. So we know we did Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley. So who's in the next tier of must return free agents, must re-sign free agents? And I came up with two names, Julian Love and Darius Slayton, safety and receiver. Who would I re-sign if given my druthers? Truth be told, I wouldn't re-sign either. But if I have to choose one, I'm going to pick Slayton. Now, before I explain why I would pick Slayton, let me tell you why I wouldn't choose to re-sign either of them. Julian Love is a great player for the Giants. He was a captain, great locker room presence, but I think the Giants have on the roster guys that can replace him if he walks. And I am not confident, by the way, that I think the Giants will re-sign Julian Love. So they have Jason Pinnock, they have Dane Belton, they have a couple guys on the practice squad, and they probably will add in the spring, via the draft. So I don't think it would be that catastrophic if Julian Love leaves. I really don't. I don't want to see him leave, but I just don't feel, I think right now, I think it's 50-50 he comes back. And I'm not getting a warm and fuzzy feeling that it's going to happen. Now, things can change, obviously, depending on how negotiations go. But right now, I'm just not feeling it. Maybe I'll feel it in a week or two, but right now I'm not. All right, Darius Slayton, why wouldn't I re-sign him? You know what? I have mad respect for Darius Slayton, how he handled himself this year in what was basically a very, trying year for him. Kept his nose down, went to work. But that being said, the consistency, right? The drops, he had so many drop passes that you just sit there and it was like, is he going to catch it or is he not going to catch it? And I don't know about you, but I would rather have a receiver that I would expect him to catch the ball. That's what they're paid to do. And with Slayton, you just couldn't count on that all the time. I think he had a career high in drops this season, and that's just not going to cut it. If you're going to pay big money to a receiver, you want a guy who has a better catch percentage, not a lot of drops. So that's my thinking there. So that said, Love or Slayton, why would I choose Slayton over Love? Well, again, I feel the Giants have guys that can step in if Love departs. Do they have guys that could step in if Slayton departs? No, not right now. Will they add? Sure, they will. But right now, you can make a case that Slayton's probably their only deep threat on the roster because I don't see Kenny Golladay surviving. I don't think he's going to be on this team. But again, the Giants are going to add. They're going to add to that group. So, as of right now, today, February 9th, the day I'm recording this, I would pick Slayton over Love to resign. You can agree, you can disagree. It's cool with me, but that's how I see it. And I told you that was a tough one. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about a couple of topics that not a lot of people are talking about, but probably should. So don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, if you're looking for that special one-of-a-kind statement piece, or maybe you're ready to pop the question, you can find jewelry as unique as that special someone in your life at BlueNile.com. Reach out to Blue Nile's consultants who will help you select the right item. Or if you're looking for an engagement ring, you can use Blue Nile's online tools to select the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting style. Blue Nile's diamond price guarantees allows you to compare a competitor's diamond against one of theirs, and they can even meet or beat their price. Every order ships free, is insured, and arrives quickly in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Right now, you can save up to 50% at BlueNile.com on select items. That's BlueNile.com for up to 50% off. BlueNile.com. Hey, Giant fans, we're really excited about our new sports betting partner, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel has so many great features that makes betting on sports fun and easy. Bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. Download the FanDuel app now so that you can bet on Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. Join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. We just got done playing a game, either or. Now we're going to pivot to two topics that not a lot of people are talking about, but really probably should when it comes to the New York Giants. And the first one is defensive line depth. Now, the Giants, to be fair, they started the season with decent defensive line depth. They had Nick Williams. They had DJ Davidson, the draft pick. They also had Justin Ellis, who they picked up from Baltimore as a free agent. They had guys. Nick Williams got hurt. DJ Davidson got hurt. And suddenly the depth thinned out. And that forced the coaches, I think, to play Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence maybe a little bit more than they needed to or wanted to. And the problem with that is that Dexter and Leonard started to wear out at the end of the season. You could kind of see it because their practice reps had to be managed. Leo had the injuries that they were trying to manage, and he was trying to fight through. So quite honestly, if you're looking at Leonard Williams and possibly lowering his cap number by extending him, you cannot ask that guy to be playing in like 85% of the snaps and above and expect him to get through that contract. It's just not going to happen. And Dexter's a little younger. All right. He hasn't been in the league 9 years like Leo has. Dexter's been going on his 5th season. But still, if you want to have him around, you want him to continue hitting his prime, you've got to cut down on his workload. And I don't think the Giants are going to re-sign Nick Williams, who ended the season with a biceps injury. I do not think Justin Ellis is going to be back. Davidson should be healthy, but when I couldn't say. I don't know if he'll be ready for camp. My guess is he'll start on PUP. So who else do you have for depth on the defensive line? Jihad Ward's a unrestricted free agent, and he's also a guy that maybe you want on the pass rush. So maybe you bring him back and he helps out. They've got Ryder Anderson, a guy who showed some intrigue. I don't think Henry Mondeau is going to be back. Defensive line is need, folks. And I don't think that position is getting talked about enough. We talk about, the Eagles and the Chiefs, and they are strong in the trenches. The Giants, not so much so because of the depth. So defensive line is definitely an area that they have to beef up. And whether they do it via free agency or the draft, that remains to be seen. All right. One other topic that nobody's talking about and probably should. Special teams. Special teams really wasn't anything special this year. I mean, Graham Gano, he was Mr. Reliable for the most part. But the punter, Jamie Gillen, inconsistent. Great leg if you had to flip the field. If you were pinned deep and you had to flip the field, booming leg. But he lacked touch when you needed a pooch or a coffin kick. Gary Brightwell as the kickoff returner. Don't want to see that again next year. How many times did opponents kick the ball to him knowing that he wasn't going to get out to the 25-yard line? So rather than, boot the ball out of the end zone, kick it to him, you're going to stop him short of what a touchback would be anyway. And it happened quite a lot, folks. Punt returner, I'd like to see an upgrade. Richie James, he did all right. The ball security issues were a problem, but he overcame them. But still, I'd like to see an upgrade there. And just overall, the special teams, and again, I've acknowledged that because of injury, that a lot of guys that maybe Thomas McGay, he was counting on to be on special teams, how to get promoted up to offense or defense. For example, Julian Love, they had to cut back on his workload because he was playing so many snaps on defense. But here's the thing, folks. Although you could say that there were maybe a lot of players that didn't have experience playing special teams in college, now we're being asked to play special teams. You still got to coach them up. And how many times when watching the coverage were guys not maintaining their lanes, were guys just running around there like chickens with their heads cut off? Too many. And all I know is that special teams at times this past season, it was a liability. And this can't continue. This is now, I guess you could say, 3 years that special teams has been, meh. So I'm looking for special teams to really improve next year. Now, the guys that will help improve it are usually the guys that are on the bottom of the roster. But they have got to address that unit. The returners, get in some competition for Jamie Gillian, assuming that you even re-sign Gillian, who's a UFA. You got to beef that unit up because the special teams just not very good, not very consistent. And you're not going to win a lot of games if your special teams just aren't up to snuff. And I think you can make a case last year that there were at least a couple games where the Giants lost them because of special teams. So that's a topic I think needs to be talked about a little bit more. All right, folks, coming up next, I have a couple of listener mailbag questions for you. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hey, Giant fans, it's that time of year again, tax time. And if you're like me, you'd probably rather be doing anything else than your taxes. Well, with Intuit TurboTax, now you don't have to do your taxes. Let one of their highly trained experts do them for you, right down to the filing. TurboTax experts will ensure that your taxes are done right, guaranteed, so that you can relax and do other things. Their guarantee applies to full service products only, and a video meeting with an expert while doing your taxes is required. So don't wait. Visit turbotax.com/guarantees to learn more. Hey, Giant fans, thanks again for making the Locked On Giants podcast your first listen every day. Subscribe to the Locked On NFL podcast and get daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories, including in-depth analysis on the biggest games with NFL key predictions every Friday. And on Monday, local insiders cover the weekend with game-to-game episodes. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm Patricia Traina, your host, and it is now time for the listener mailbag section of the podcast, where every show I'm going to try and answer a couple questions as submitted by you guys and gals. So if I have them, I'll answer them. And this way, we'll just keep up to date with the questions that you guys have. So, all right, there's a couple from listeners for this show. We'll start off with one from Bobby C., who sent it in via our new Instagram account, Locked On Giants. And he asks, who was your favorite non-Super Bowl Giants team that you covered and why? Wow, that is a tough one, Bobby. Wow. I don't know if I have one. You know what, Bobby? I don't think I have one. I can't sit here and say that I have a favorite non-Super Bowl team that I covered. And I'll tell you why I say that. Every team, every year, has its own unique personality. And there are always going to be players on each team that you just kind of build a good working rapport with. So in terms of, having fun covering the team, I'm not going to lie, the Super Bowl teams are always the most favorite to cover. And I've said many times 2007 was my favorite team to cover for many reasons. Simply more importantly on that one, because I was healthy. Whereas in 2011, I was just coming off cancer treatments, and that was kind of a blur for me that year. But non-Super Bowl team, wow, really hard to answer. I don't have one. I've never even thought of it, to be honest with you, because like I said, every team just seems to have its own unique personality, and you build up working relationships with guys and whatnot. So, gee, I'm sorry to let you down, Bobby, but I don't have an answer. I'd have to really think about that. And even then, I'm not sure I can give you an answer, because every year is special. And I recognize that I'm blessed to do what I do. So I don't think you'll ever hear me say that there was a team that I hated covering. I hated the losing, don't get me wrong, but, from a person-to-person perspective, I can't say that I didn't like covering any specific team. But thank you for the question. That was a good one. That was a different one, and that was a challenging one. So I thank you for that question. All right, let's see. I think we have one here via email. So let me just pull up my email here. Yes, we have one from Alan B., who says, the free agent class for wide receivers isn't special. The draft class isn't deep, and New York doesn't pick until 25. So finding a number one receiver isn't going to be easy. If he's healthy, OBJ, is a real good fit. Any chance the Giants will revisit this possibility? Alan, I disagree that OBJ is going to be a good fit if healthy. He's on the wrong side of 30. He's probably going to want to be paid. Look, no disrespect to anybody here, but it's time to move on from the guy. I mean, if the Giants did due diligence with him, I get it. I would expect them to do it. But realistically speaking, you want to build for the future. All right. And he just, to me, to do it with a guy who's on the wrong side of 30, who's coming off of 2 ACLs, I just don't see it happening. I really don't. As you mentioned, 25, drafting 25 might be tricky, but who's to say that, they can't find a number one receiver at some point in the draft? Who's to say that maybe they're of the opinion that, okay, there's really no bona fide number one receiver out there as of right now. So maybe instead we look to get 2 quality number 2s and just, beef up the weaponry that way. So we don't really know what Joe Shane is thinking. He kind of downplayed getting a number one receiver in his year-end presser, which to me kind of tipped off maybe what they're thinking as of, as of that moment. But, Odell, I know they said they would keep their options open, but I really don't think he's going to be back here. If he is, great. I mean, I always liked Odell. I hope he is back, but I really think, from a roster building perspective, it's time to move on. It really is. So thanks for the question, Alan. Thank you all for your questions. And of course, for tuning into the Locked On Giants podcast. We'll be back on Monday with all new episodes. So you will want to tune in because I have some really cool stuff planned for you next week. So everybody enjoy the Super Bowl as best as you can. And we will see you again on Monday.